Hello and welcome to Addicted to Lacrosse. This is Season 4, Episode 21 for Tuesday, May the 23rd, 2017. My name is Graham Perro. With me, as always, is Melissa Daphne and our roving reporter, Tyler Fitch. Tyler has been where you were in Austin now. Last week you were in San Francisco. A couple of weeks ago you were in Seattle. You're all over the place.
Yeah, starting a new job can take you many places.
All right. Okay, no obvious, no significant news this week in terms of trades or things like that. I'm expecting the league to start announcing the nominees for the various awards, like GM of the Year and MVP and Rookie of the Year and all those sorts of things, anytime, but they haven't started that yet. The IL Indoor General Manager of the Year award was announced today, and so I guess IL Indoor will be doing those starting today and like one per day for the next little while. But the league hasn't started theirs. So we will probably talk about those on the next episode. We do have a couple of comments that came in from listeners, so we'll get to those first. On YouTube, we had somebody named Lyle Schweigart. I hope I pronounced that correctly. His comment was, speaking as a Saskatchewan Rush fan, I want more lacrosse, not less. Come on, Graham. Let's get excited about the playoffs, not diminish the importance. So that was referring to some comments we were talking about last week in terms of cutting down the length of the playoffs. And I'll respond to that just by saying I'm not trying to diminish the importance of the playoffs at all. That's what the league is about. The whole point of the regular season is to figure out the seedings for the playoffs. So I don't want to get rid of the playoffs or cut down the number of games, but in the current format, the absolute maximum you're going to get out of the playoffs is 9 games and 2 mini games. This year we've already skipped the 2 mini games, and the final will be either 2 or 3. But it shouldn't take 6 weeks to play 9 games. It's not so much the number of games that I think we should cut down. I think it's just the total length of time needs to be kind of squashed a little bit. I think I suggested last week that maybe we change the second round back to the one and done. So the first 2 rounds are like that. And that idea is not because I want less lacrosse. I mean, look at the 3 of us. We are addicted to lacrosse. We want more and more and more. But that doesn't mean we want it to stretch all year long. And the single game elimination idea for me is more about reducing the length of the playoffs, not the number of games. If they keep it as a 2-game series and they do both games in the one weekend, I'm totally fine with that. So I don't want to diminish the importance of the playoffs. I just don't think it needs to be stretched out as long as possible.
I think the other thing we forgot about is they've added 2 regular season games, stretching out the season another 2 weeks. We were focusing so much on the playoffs that there used to be 16 games. So when those seasons were finishing on May 15th, it was 16 regular games and shorter playoffs. So there's lots of factors at play here.
Yeah, and I think it's not so much that, okay, we're tired of lacrosse, we want to move on to something else. It's that the longer the NLL season goes, the less that NLL players can possibly play in the MLL or MSL or WLA or any of the other leagues. They may have coaching responsibilities and that sort of thing. And so the longer the NLL goes, the less likely players are to be able to play anywhere else. And it's I want to say it's unfair to the players to say, you better, if you're committing to the NLL, you're going to have to give up all of these other things. And if we want there to be some sort of parity is the wrong word, but fairness between all these different leagues, the MLL may have to move their schedule a little bit. The NLL is going to have to move their schedule a little bit. There's an awful lot of players who, given the choice, would prefer to win a Mann Cup than they would an NLL championship. So telling them, if you're going to play in the NLL, you better be there till the end of the playoffs and skip half of your WLA season, that's not fair to them either. So I don't know the best the best solution there, and maybe it's not up to the NLL to play nicely with the other leagues. But in any case, like I said, 6 or 7 weeks to play 9 games just seems a little long. Yeah, so the other quote we got was, or the other comment we got was on Twitter from Sask Rush fan, and this I didn't know. I don't think we mentioned this last week, but what he said was the main reason for bumping the playoffs back a week, as in this coming weekend is not, there will be no games, is the lack of Swarm Arena availability to host Game 1 of the finals. And if you looked at the Infinite Energy Center's schedule, they have a bunch of stuff going on this coming weekend, mostly high school graduations, and I think there's some concerts and things like that. So if they hadn't skipped that 1 week on the assumption that Georgia beat Toronto this past weekend and will be hosting Game 1 of the finals, they'd either have to do it on a Thursday night or a Monday night or some crazy thing because the arena just wasn't available. So they added this extra week in. They can certainly say that gives teams extra time to sell tickets, because it does, and it allows the Swarm to actually host the game on a reasonable time. Now, turns out it's 1 o'clock on a Sunday afternoon, which kind of sucks, but it's better than a Friday and it's better than a Thursday, or it's better than a Monday, I meant. Anyway, so thanks a lot for your comments. Keep sending them in, and we will deal with them on the show. One bit of news which Melissa just reminded me of, and I don't know much about it other than I saw it earlier today, was that Casey Powell is being inducted into the U.S. Lacrosse Hall of Fame. Melissa, do you know more about that?
I don't. My computer's being uncooperative, so I was trying to share the link with you because it's not pulling up for me and it's not wanting to paste. But it is on the Mammoth homepage. Okay, there we go. Casey Powell, widely regarded as one of the best lacrosse players of all time, has been named one of the 9 inductees into the National Lacrosse Hall of Fame class of 2017. Carthage, New York native, played for the Mammoth in 2013 and 2014. He's the only American-born player ever to win the Most Valuable Player Award in the National Lacrosse League, and was named to the NLL 30th Anniversary Team in 2015. He scored 279 goals and registered 395 assists in his career. And I'll be honest, I didn't remember him having much impact in the NLL, and maybe that's because he was on the Mammoth and hardly played. But that's my memory. Let's see, the ceremony is going to be September 23rd at the Grand Lodge in Hunt Valley, Maryland. And he went to Syracuse, was 4-time All-American, 2-time National Player of the Year. So, and he's represented the U.S. in multiple World Championships, winning gold in 1998. So, that is definitely interesting. I would have thought it was going to be for one of the other ones, but, you know, that's me and a little bit of bias there. But like I said, I don't remember him. He was on the Mammoth team much longer than he actually seemed to play. So I only remember seeing him play a few games.
He didn't have a huge impact on the Mammoth.
It was definitely tail end of his career. I think he even took a year off before he came back, because he'd been with the Titans in New York and Orlando, and maybe a year off in 2012 and came back 2013, 2014, like they said.
Yeah, that sounds about right. I believe there was a year off in there somewhere.
And that could be why he's not real strong in my memory, because if he was playing for the East Coast teams, unfortunately, we hardly got to see any of them during that time period. So that would definitely explain that mind blank too. Because I'm like, I barely remember him playing. So.
Yep, Casey Powell played a couple seasons with the Nighthawks, 99 and 2000. Then he took 3 years off and returned with the Anaheim Storm in 2004 and 2005. 3 years with the New York Titans, 1 with the Orlando Titans, 1 with the Boston Blazers. Then he took 2012 off, and I think he actually returned with the Nighthawks and then was traded to the Mammoth halfway through the season. And then he played 5 games in 2014 with the Mammoth, and that was it. So 11 seasons, 674 points. Not bad. So, yeah, widely regarded as one of, if not the best American-born box lacrosse player. Yeah, and like you said, the only American-born MVP the NLL has seen. And so congratulations to Casey Powell. And we will move on to the games of the week. And I wore my Rock jersey to honor the team that got their butts kicked by Georgia. I can't say they got their butts kicked. They were beaten. They were beaten by a better team, but it wasn't a complete blowout. And again, they held Georgia to less than their season average in terms of goals, so that's not so bad. They just could only score 9 themselves. So Georgia beats Toronto and heads to their first ever final. And Saskatchewan holds off Colorado 11-10. Looked like kind of like the same game. Obviously, the fourth quarter was quite different than in game 1. But Colorado just couldn't get that one extra goal to tie it up. And Saskatchewan heads to their third straight or second straight, depending on if you're talking about cities or finals. And we have the Rush versus the Swarm starting the weekend after next, I guess. So awesome things and not awesome things. I've got a couple of each. I don't know if you actually. Tyler has a whole bunch, so we'll let Tyler go first.
Because I had one extra not awesome. We're all about equal. All right, I'm gonna go with in an otherwise unremarkable game. 13-9, kind of ran things the whole way. Georgia won, and the Swarm, as a franchise, are going to their first ever championship. And they've been in the league for quite a while. I'd say 12 seasons. But it's go ahead.
2004, I think.
Oh, so it'd be 13, 14 seasons maybe. So they've been around for quite a while, and they've never got over this hump. And they have for the first time now, and I'm proud of them. I remember the stealth for a long time languished. Then they got kind of good in the playoffs, and eventually got there in 2010 and won a title. And the Swarm fans now who get to experience that, the diehards they have in Georgia, as many as there are, they're like, hey, we got a good team. Hopefully more people will show up, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. And so I'm really proud of the Swarm for making it to their first finals as a franchise. It's something that's important for I think the team to survive and thrive over time. I will pass it to you, Graham.
Okay. And my mistake, 2005 was the first season of the Minnesota Swarm. I will continue with the Swarm and say, and this is sort of a mostly awesome, but I'm going to call it awesome anyway. 6,382 people in Georgia. So the attendance in Georgia was awesome. And we haven't been able to say that pretty much ever. It's not the 10K that they were hoping for. They changed their Twitter name to Georgia 10K Day or something like this. So they were really hoping to get 10,000 out of that game, and they didn't. So a little over 6,300. But it's pretty much double what their announced attendance was the rest of the season. And if you look at the actual number of people that were in the arena, it was noticeably more than any regular season game that I remember. So they didn't pack the place, they didn't sell out, but pretty much doubling their crowds. I mean, they were getting between 3,000 and 4,000 every game this year. So to get over 6,300 is pretty good. So I'm going to call that awesome. Good job, Georgia Swarm. Melissa, you're next.
I think I'm just going to kind of keep on the Georgia love because, I think that is all really awesome. I'm with Tyler that I think it's really awesome that the Swarm are going to their first championship game. I mean, when the Mammoth went, that was just stunning, and that's been a long time now. So it is nice to see a team that has had points in their history that they really, really struggled finally getting there. And win or lose, it is a big deal because they've made it. And look how many teams haven't made it or have only made it once. So Mammoth for one. They've been around for a few years longer. So yeah, it's really awesome. They played really well against Toronto. I think Toronto put up a fight. I mean, they had 51 shots on goal, and yet there was a 4-goal difference. So the goalies were making a difference, and Swarm were making it hard to decide who to cheer for. So that's pretty awesome. What about you, Tyler? What's your next one?
Sure. My next awesome is along the lines of numbers and fans is the crowd in Saskatoon. They keep showing up. They keep supporting their team. They did have that one idiot jump the fence. I've never seen that in the lacrosse game ever. But that was it's quite the moment. But in general, the crowd continuing to support them. I think they're not set for life, but they're set for a good 10-year run. Like the Mammoth had 10 years where it's guaranteed to pack the house, and they didn't quite win. It started to drop, but it took a long time for that to happen. So they got a good thing going on, and it's kind of nothing to do with even the people on the field. Obviously, winning helps, but the fans are showing up, and they're doing a great thing in Saskatoon. And kind of, I don't know, I guess proud is the word I'm going for, or could also be jealous because still have always sucked at fans. So the just having that good experience happening there is great for them. What do you got, Graham?
All right, my next one, I'm going to move over to the Saskatchewan game, and I'm going to go. I didn't actually see. I only saw about half of the Rock Swarm game because I was up north at my parents' place, and they have really slow internet, and I didn't want to max out my phone by trying to watch it on my phone. So I didn't watch them until yesterday, and I only saw the first half of the Toronto game and the fourth quarter of the Saskatchewan-Colorado game. But I'm going to go with Mike Messenger's goal in the fourth quarter of that game. And this is kind of the thing that he's been doing all season. And he was on defense, grabbed the ball on his own end, runs the length of the floor, got hit by two different Mammoth defenders right on the edge of the crease, managed to brush them off, spin around, still getting hit by one of them, fakes out Aaron Bold and bounces a shot by him for an amazing goal. So I've heard a lot of words describing Mike Messenger. I think Beast is the most popular one. He's just a strong guy, and watching him just push these defenders off like there were nobody, and then circling around to score that goal was amazing. So nice goal by Mike Messenger.
Yeah, I kind of hated it was against my team, but that was a beauty of a goal. There's no arguing that one.
Right, Melissa, you're next.
All right, so I'm kind of echoing again with Tyler. I am really excited to see the Rush going for their third cup in a row. For the longest time, the Rush was that easy win team, and if you were playing them, and that was a complaint that several fans had, that why does Calgary get to face the Rush 4 times? Because that's a guaranteed 4 wins, and it was for a while. So to see them really turn the corner and have a very successful team, have a very successful crowd, it's really awesome, and I'm really excited to see their future because they're just really doing everything right now, and I'm very happy to see that they are where they are, because for quite a few years a lot of people were thinking that we weren't going to have the Rush team around very long because they kept losing and they were just struggling and they weren't getting the attendance, and then all of a sudden everything started changing and they started winning not just occasionally but a lot in hard games, and they were no longer that whipping boy, and so yeah, I'm really excited to see that the Rush are going for their third cup. I think that's really awesome, considering not that long ago they were the easy beat team. So what about you, Tyler?
I am all out of awesomes, so I'll pass it around back to Graham or back to you even, Melissa, if we got any more.
I'm out of awesomes as well. Melissa, any more?
The one that stands out for me is the goal from Mark Matthews that opened up for the Rush, and it was just one of those goals that it seemed like everybody kind of stood still and watched, because he just had no defense against him, and he really just kind of poured out of his shoes, and it was just a beauty of a goal that you're just going, oh, that really kind of sucks, but that was awesome. And I got to cheer Mark Matthews. He went to DU. That's hometown. He was a pioneer. So, when he scores against us, it's kind of that mixed. I'm cheering and booing at the same time because, yay, Mark Matthews. but it was against us. So, but it was just one of those pretty goals, and it did. It seemed like everybody just kind of stood still for a second because he just kind of walked around everyone. So that would be my last awesome.
Alrighty, I will kick us off on not awesomes then, and I'm gonna, I think, basically repeat the one I had from last week of where was Nick Rose in the Rock game. I feel he should have started. It could have made all the difference. We don't know. We'll never get to find out. But he was the starter all season, and because B. Miller came in 2 games ago and saved you in one playoff game, he's starting this week. It just didn't make any sense to me. I can't figure out the thought logic as a coach of going with the backup because he played good the week before. I think he's still your backup. And you have a great goalie who you trusted to get you into the playoffs, and you did not start him in a must-win game. So that was really, really screwy to me, and I don't comprehend it. So I think that Matt Sawyer should have made a different choice. But, of course, I'm not the coach. I'm just a fan. How about you, Graham?
Yeah, what do you know about coaching lacrosse anyway? But I guess we'll get to that later. My first not awesome is the camera that's used for goal challenges in Georgia is not above the goal line, which it just boggles my mind. Like, that's where it needs to be, whether it's for hockey or for lacrosse or for anything else. And I don't believe the arena there was built for lacrosse. It was likely built for hockey. But as far as I know, the goals are in the same place. So you'd figure if there's an overhead camera, it should be right above the goal, directly above the goal line, because that's where you need to see. Instead, it's above the Harrah's Casino. I think it's Harrah's Casino. I have a feeling it's not, but anyway, it's above the casino advertisement, a few feet in front of the goal. So Joel White scored a goal in the second quarter, and they challenged it because it looked like it. Well, what happened was it went off the post, hit the back of the goalie, and then sort of trickled over the goal line. But by that point, White had stepped into the crease because it took a long time for the ball to actually cross the line. But if you were looking at the replay, there were several shots where it looked like the ball was clearly over the line. And the only reason for that was the perspective, because the camera was a little bit in front of the goal instead of directly over it. So if you were to take a video of that and then pause it, take a still frame of that, you can see the line, you can see the ball was clearly over it. There you go, it's a goal. And then the ball hits the post and goes out. Well, if the ball had crossed the line already, it's not possible for it to hit the post and stay out. So luckily the referee understood this. They got the call right. The goal was waved off. But it was a really long goal review, and it didn't need to be that long. If the camera was in the right place, it would have been obvious. It hit the post, it hit the goalie, it went in. By that point, Joel White was in the crease. And so putting the camera in the wrong place just made it take longer than it really needed to. And yeah, it just seems like a really simple problem that should have been solved, and wasn't. Who's next? Melissa, you're next.
I know, we're all out of order this week. So my not awesome was how disorganized the Mammoth team was for a good portion of that game. I mean, the announcers were even commenting that at one point, I think there was one Mammoth defender out for almost most of the play. It's like, where's the team? What is going on? This and you just kept seeing it. It was like you took half the team and swapped in another team. They just weren't communicating. They were missing passes, and it was just, I don't want to say calamity because it really wasn't, but it was frustrating because it was like watching a preseason game. They just were not playing well together. It did not look like the team that they were a few weeks ago. It just, I was surprised the score ended up being as close as it was. Let's just put it that way, because I felt like the Mammoth team was so disorganized and not communicating so poorly that I just don't know how they even got the goals they did. It was very frustrating to watch because did not look like a playoff team, in my opinion. They just look so disorganized, and I don't know what was going on because it did not, like I said, it didn't look like a playoff game. It looked like a preseason or a first or second game of the season game. It did not look like, hey, we're fighting for it to go to the cup. So yeah, that would be my not awesome, is my frustrating Mammoth team again. So did you have anything else, Tyler?
Yeah, I've still got some not awesomes. This initially wasn't awesome up until this last game with the Mammoth and the Rush. It was that the refs were letting them play. In general, they weren't calling ticky-tacky things. Generally, you could hold somebody more or less as long as it wasn't terrible. And it's really about letting the players play and define the outcomes of the game. But as that second game with the Mammoth at the Rush was playing, there was just some hits that were coming through. There was one point Adam Jones went across the middle and he was hit high. He got his helmet taken off. It was a flat out high hit. And my problem is that it was the kind of hit where the league comes through later and reviews things. So people can say, oh, it's playoff lacrosse. Ryan McMichael. And he said, it's playoff lacrosse. They get harder and they're tougher and the refs let them play. But if the league comes through and says, hey, that was actually a penalty and you're going to be suspended for an illegal hit, and during the game, the refs didn't call anything because it's playoff lacrosse, there's too much of a disconnect there. And if that happens, then yeah, that's our problem. And that's not going to be okay. It's not going to be acceptable. So hopefully you can find that line for the refs to say, you know what, it is the playoffs, but that guy's helmet got taken off. As much as I want to let them play, that was too much. Because I think that hit was too much. I'm surprised there wasn't a big fight afterwards. There's a lot of pushing and shoving. And it wasn't right, in my opinion. You got any other not awesome, Scream?
I do not, actually. I'm all done. So, Melissa, do you have any left?
No, I don't. But I definitely would have to echo what Tyler was saying. That, yeah, it's great that they were letting them play, but you do need to maintain control of the game, too. Mammoth have lost a few players out of, their careers were ended due to playoff hits. So, yeah, it's good that they're letting them play, but you still have to maintain control, and a nasty hit is a nasty hit and should be called. So I definitely agree with that sentiment.
Okay, I do have one more not awesome. It has an NL connection, so stick with me. As we were talking earlier about the extended schedule and players having conflicts, Chris O'Doherty and his East Lake, I want to say Seawolves team from Seattle beat my team from the Union Titans out of Vancouver, Washington in the state playoffs last weekend for field lacrosse. So it's not awesome that Chris O'Doherty is a slightly better coach. It might be significantly better in reality because I'm just an assistant who helps when I can. Coach than me. And Graham said, what do I know about coaching? I know enough to help the kids who are already good get a little bit better. So Chris's team beat me, but then he tied into the NLL. If the Stealth had beaten the Mammoth last weekend, Chris's team would have been in a state playoff game, and he would have been in Saskatchewan. And that doesn't work. The last couple of games when the Mammoth were playing and Teddy Jenner is doing the color commentary as opposed to the play-by-play, it's because both Shuchuk and Gallant were coaching high school games. So these players have conflicts that they didn't used to have. When the season was over 2 weeks ago, it wasn't really a problem for those guys to then go out and coach their high school teams that they helped in the region where they were playing. But now it is a conflict, and I think my team could have beaten the other team if Chris wasn't there to keep them settled in on their game plan. Because things like that can make a big difference. So as much as I'm talking about here, it's boo Chris for beating me. You're a punk. And it's a problem that it's a bummer that the players have to have. So that's not awesome. Okay, that's all I got.
All right, that will do it for that part of the show. We will move on to our predictions for the second round. And given the regular season record, we're completely backwards here in that I am in first place for a change of pace. I went 2-0 in the second round and now 3-1 overall. Melissa is right smack in the middle where she was all season. At 2-0 also in the second round and 2-2 in the playoffs. And Tyler went 1-1 last week, or if in the second round that is, and is only 1-3 overall. So I'm going to call those equivalent because 81 games versus 4, it's the same thing. Division final, yeah, that was a division final. So Tyler picked Toronto, and everybody else, everything else was correct. So that was good. And now we get on to our picks for the finals, and I haven't even filled mine in yet. But Saskatchewan at Georgia. This is kind of the matchup we've all been looking forward to all season. We've got Saskatchewan known for their defense, but has a pretty darn good offense as well. We've got Georgia known for their offense, but has a pretty good defense as well. So I guess we might get some sort of an answer to the whole offense wins games, defense wins championships thing. Is that actually real or not? And I'm going to say no. I'm going to go with the Georgia Swarm to win their first ever championship. It would not surprise me that this goes 3 games, but we decided we were just going to pick winner and not a number of games. So I'm going to go with Georgia, and hopefully they can pack that arena for at least game 1 and possibly game 3 if they need it. Yeah, so I'm going to go with Georgia for the title. And Melissa, I guess you're next.
All right, so this was definitely a tough choice. And as I said, I actually am excited to see both these teams play in the final. As Graham just said, we've kind of been picking this one since pretty early in the season, going, wow, it looks like we're going to have a Georgia Rush final. And so we actually do. And I'm excited because, like I said earlier, we have a team who's never been, and now we have a team who was struggling to win, now going for their 3rd championship in a row. And so I was really torn on who I wanted because, as Graham said, there's many reasons to pick either team. And I do hope this one's going to come down to the wire. We have had a couple championship games where it looked like it was going to be this evenly matched game, and it ended up being a complete blowout. So I'm hoping it's not going to be one of those. I want this to be an exciting cup game. But I'm going to go with the Rush. I'm going to cheer on their hopeful 3-peat. But if the Swarm win, I'm not going to be too upset either. I'm just happy to cheer on both these teams. So I am really looking forward to watching these games. What about you, Tyler?
This is one tough pick to make, I think. I think it can be summed up as offense for.
Oh, no.
we lost Tyler. Tyler's had a few internet-related issues during the show. He's actually dropped off 2 or 3 times, but luckily not while he was talking, so he could just come back and we continue the next time. But I guess we have to wait a few minutes and hope he comes back. So how about that weather, huh?
Hey, we had snow the other day. And it's 80 degrees tomorrow.
That's just wrong.
Colorado
I guess actually I did have another
72.
awesome I went to. Everybody else was talking about how awesome the Rush were, and I didn't actually mention that, but I would concur. And I actually mentioned this in my in the Island or GM of the Year awards, which, like I said, were posted today. And the winner was John Arlotta from the Swarm, who was also my vote. And we being a whole lot of people on Twitter and in message boards and Facebook and stuff, he got made fun of a lot in the last 4, 5, 6 years, basically for stockpiling draft picks and trading people away for draft picks. And it was just, the Swarm have 4 or 5 of the top 10 people in each of the last 3 or 4 drafts or some crazy thing like this. It was just draft picks all over the place. And the team wasn't really doing any better. They gave away Ryan Benesh for draft picks, and it took them 2 or 3 years before the draft picks even turned into anybody, and I don't remember who they were now. But it just seemed like clearly this guy doesn't know what he's doing. Well, clearly this guy knows what he's doing, because look at the team now, and it's just stockpiled with all of these draft picks that he had. And then he made a couple of nice trades to pick up Mike Poulin and to pick up Jordan Hall. And now he's got one of the most exciting teams we've ever seen. So good job to him. And looks like we do have Tyler back.
Cool. When did I drop? Did I even make a pick?
No.
No.
God, come on.
Started. You're like, this is really hard to pick, and there goes Tyler.
Thanks, hotel Wi-Fi. Okay, I had a great speech there. Offensively, Rush are nearly as good as Georgia, so that's tough, but Georgia's better. Defensively, Rush, I think, is significantly better, but Georgia has a great defense as well as they've got this far. The goalie matchup is maybe the biggest variable. Bold knows what he's doing. He's been in this spot, but Poulin is no slouch. Kind of worry about that the most. That said, and I hope it goes 3 games, that Georgia wins and that they can win at home and build that fan base. It's easier to win in 2 and just say, screw it. We don't have to worry about that 3rd game. But if it goes 3 and they can make the fans be a part of the experience of winning, that'll be a huge factor for next year and the continued success of the team.
All right, so we have a couple of Swarm picks and 1 Rush, and given, as we said, the how close these teams are, yeah, you can't look at either one of those picks and say, yeah, there's no way that's happening. The only thing that we can say there's no way that's happening is that both of these games are going to be blowouts. That would be my guess, that we're not going to see one team dominate the first 2 games and win it all, because neither of these teams have really been dominated by anybody. I think I meant to look this up beforehand. They only played each other once this season, and I'm pretty sure Georgia won it, but that was when Aaron Bold was suspended, and I think Ben McIntosh was suspended, and it was the first game of the year, and so it's not really indicative of what the 2 teams are capable of. So yeah, I think we're in for a really exciting final, and that starts in about a week and a half. Now, seeing as there's no games next week, I imagine there would be no need for us to have a show next week, because there wouldn't really be anything to talk about. So unless something crazy happens and there's a trade or some silly thing, we will probably not record next week, and then we'll be back the Sunday or the Monday following the first game of the finals. So I guess that'll do it for another episode of Addicted to Lacrosse. For Tyler and Melissa, I'm Graham. Thanks for listening, and we will see you in 2 weeks.